Hey guys, subscribe for daily content. And if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks! What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got a really interesting knife review slash knife overview to share with you guys. This is the Begg Knives and JVO design, or Jared Van Otterloo, Spear Point Slip Joint. There's a bunch of interesting things about this knife. I think first and foremost, the thing that's going to interest most people is that this is not an expensive knife at all. It is built with 14C28N, some steel, some really nice G10. In fact, overall, the fit and finish is really, really great. And it's about 54 bucks. So a lot of you might be wondering, why don't you do more of these? Why are you so oddly selective? And I'm going to be honest with you, as I've said in the past, classic slip joint style knives don't interest me because they don't have a lot of the elements that drew me into the knife world in the first place. I did grow up with a slip joint knife, but I quickly, I viewed that differently than the knives that kind of got me interested. However, this knife is built with materials that I am super familiar with, including, the steel and the handle material, which in this case is polished G10, as you guys can see right here. And we also have those really cool inlays there. But there's kind of the combination of the classic elements and the modern elements. And for that reason, along with the fact that this is Begg knives behind this series of knives, it makes it a little more interesting. So there are going to be some people interested in this and others not. But I personally find this a little bit more interesting than classic slip joint style knives that haven't changed a lot over the years. So anyways, thanks so much to Begg Knives for supplying this review. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me. I'm going to link this knife down in the description so you guys can check it out. It actually comes in a bunch of different configurations. It does help my channel when you use those links, but that's entirely up to you. This is not going to be a super, complicated review because it's not a very complicated knife. Overall length, that's actually what it's called, by the way, is the Spear Point Slip Joint Knife. 6.85 inches, blade length is 3 inches, and cutting edge is 2.75, which is small in terms of or on the smaller side in terms of your modern tactical folding knife, but actually I would say on the larger side for a slip joint style knife. Let's go ahead and do some size comparisons. Any custom scales you find in this section can be found down in the description under Original Goat and Others, up against the 80-10 and the 80-20.5. You can see here it's not huge, but it's also not tiny. Put it up against the Spyderco PM2 and the Spyderco Para 3. There you go. It actually has an identical amount of cutting edge to the Spyderco Para 3. Definitely worth pointing out. And then finally, up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue and the Hogue Deca. How's the action? We judge these completely different than we judge regular knives. For me personally, I want a nice snap into the closed position, a nice snap into the half stop or mid stop position, and a nice snap into the open position, right? So from the open position to the halfway position, it definitely has a distinct spot. It's not quite like a slam, right? Some knives are a lot harder and a lot more stiff in that position, but it is definitely distinct and not floppy. Like if I try to move it a little bit this way, it pops back. A little bit this way, it also pops back. This is what I like to see, right? Ideally, I like to see it kind of angled this way, but this is fine. It feels nice and high quality. Snap into the closed position is great. I never know how to judge these because I never handle enough to be able to tell. I don't find this very difficult at all to open up, right? Maybe like a 5? I don't know. I feel like I say that every single time. The snap into the open position also feels good. I'll let you guys take a look at this area right here. Looks like it's favoring slightly this way. And this isn't able to be adjusted because this is all pin construction all the way around. That's one of the things that I don't like about classic slip joint style blades is you have no way of adjusting it. It's all pinned, right? I mean, I guess like if you really know your way around this, I guess there's a way to take it apart and then repair it. But the average person, actually not even that, 99.999999999% of people will not be able to take this apart and put it back together and have it operate the same way as it did, right out of the box. So this is that's a bummer with stuff like this. So I would have preferred, I think the cherry on top for me was something like this, given that we are working with a steel that we typically see in modern tactical knives, right? And then you got like the layered G10, Not that that's exclusive, though, but there's more modern elements here. It would have been really cool to see some Torx adjustment heads on the scales and on the pivot, which is, by the way, is also pinned. I think if we turn it, you can kind of see where the actual pivot pin went through. But anyways, yeah, the overall fit and finish feels really good. This area was the only slightly sloppy bit, but I don't want to judge it too hard because the knife is really beautiful in all areas. The transition from the bolster to the G10, or the little shield, right? The layered G10 underneath, the satin finish on the blade, even the cutting bevel. I mean, this is all really, really nice. And the price, again, $54. I wasn't, super upset about that. Combine that with the fact that there is no left and right blade play, and you have all these nice distinct positions here. I'm really happy with it. I think the action is pretty darn good. For people who like to carry knives like this, I think they'll be pretty satisfied with it for the money. Let's go ahead and do carry profile. So thickness up against something like the Para 3, I guess it's almost the same, maybe slightly thicker. Everything's contoured though, which is nice. Let's do carry profile length and height up against the PM2 and Para 3. These style knives tend to be easier to carry in terms of the total amount of object that you're carrying. The downside is you don't have a pocket clip. So you either drop it in your pocket and let it roll around, which some people don't have a problem with. I personally do, which is why I don't carry. One of the reasons I don't carry knives like this. But you could do that. You could have a slip, or you could have a slip with a pocket clip, right? It just depends what your preference is. But the object itself is not going to be a difficult object to carry. It might be slightly larger than typical slip joint style blades. Let's go ahead and weigh it. So again, we have a lot of steel, G10, layer G10, and then 14C28N for the blade. I'm going to guess this weighs at least 3.5 ounces. Oh, it weighs over 4 ounces, which is kind of wild. The reason for that is just all of this heavy steel all the way through here and up here. The balance on the knife is going to be quite a ways from where the pivot would be. I feel like that's fairly common for this style of knife. The total amount of object, though, even with it being 4.1 ounces, which is not a weight I consider heavy personally, I can't say that really bothers me too much. I mean, this is very easy to just toss in my pocket and walk around the house with, right? We cannot do a hardware check because you can't take it apart. That's totally pointless. So we'll just move on to the blade stock thickness here. Blade stock thickness is coming in at about 108 thousandths, so definitely on the thinner side. Let's go ahead and move into the meat and potatoes. This is a cool looking little slip joint. And let me tell you, there's a lot of trashy stuff out there. Like, I've seen plenty of companies selling like slip joint style knives. There's some reputable companies, right? But these types of knives are popular, and there is a massive range in terms of quality. I mean, I expect to see the range, like people know how to identify the actual gas station ninja stuff and the actual high quality budget stuff that we have in our world, right? You could pay $25 to $45 for absolute hot trash in the tactical knife world. When I say tactical, I just mean like modern single blade locking folding knives. Or you could pay $25 to $40 or $45 in this world and get something that's actually really, really good. And there's obviously a huge difference in terms of overall fit and finish and general quality. When it comes to slip joints, I feel like it's even more so. Maybe you guys can correct me. But the good stuff on the cheaper end is really, really good. And the bad stuff is, oh my God, like how did it even make it to the market? I just can't understand the incredible range, right? But this is definitely on the nicer side. In fact, I've handled slip joint style knives that are just like this. Maybe there's a difference in the blade steel or some. Maybe the blade steel is like 154 cm or whatever, but it costs like 3 times as much, and it's essentially the same thing. I'm pretty impressed with the fit and finish here. I honestly think it's great. Ergonomically, this is large enough for me to get a full grip on. Obviously, you don't want to put your thumb back here because it's not a locking knife, which is another reason that I don't carry knives like this typically. Truth be told, this will do pretty much everything that I would normally do with a knife. It's just not within my preferences. Everything that I carry is massively overkill for the type of person I am, which, by the way, is an absolutely regular dude who is a professional of nothing, a YouTube design reviewer, I do not take these things out and test them like in winter, fall, spring, and summer, right? In the tundra, in the desert. I don't baton. I don't do that stuff. That's not what I do on this channel. We got lots of channels out there who are able to do that type of testing or have, Rockwell testing equipment, things like that. I don't do that. I carry my knives around and use them like a regular person and get a decent gauge on, the utilitarian aspects, but more so just judging the overall quality of the object, the execution from a manufacturing standpoint, or if they happen to be handmade, then from that standpoint. But as far as other, slip joint style knives in general at this price point, I think this is really fantastic. And as far as like knives in general at $50, I also think that this is pretty fantastic, right? I think it's nice, but I'm not going to carry a knife that doesn't lock personally, and a knife that I can't deploy with one hand because I just like to be able to deploy it with one hand. And I'm also not going to carry a knife that doesn't have a pocket clip. I do appreciate them though, right? I'm trying to be fair about this, and I know a lot of other people like them, but given that I, just kind of carry this around for honestly just like a day or so because it's a really simple knife. The edge didn't, act in a way that made me think like it's not heat treated incredibly well. But then again, I could probably carry this for 10 days and just cut open packages and things with it and not be able to get a good read on it. I don't know who the OEM is. But I know that it's made in China. They seem to do a really good job, right? Everything here indicates that they care about what they're doing. They care about, the execution. They care that everything lines up correctly and is of good quality. So I would assume that they would try with a heat treat, but you never know. This is probably, given that the industry standard for 14C28N seems to be like 58 to 60, it's probably not that hard to get it to. And 14C28N isn't going to win any awards in terms of edge retention anyway. So this acts about the same as other knives that I've experienced in terms of 14C28N. The edge stayed sharp, right? I mean, it'll still slice paper. It's probably been through, I don't know, a few good long cuts through cardboard, through a couple of different packages. Nothing that's going to give me much information anyway. I just don't have the means of actually, honestly, I can't feel any difference between this, currently and, when I started this. But the blade looks good. I like that it says Begg, and it's fairly small up here. I think it would have looked nicer down here. It's got a little nail nick. On the other side, you have the JVO design. Nice satin finish on the blade there too. Definitely. Love that snap into the closed position. Really like the red and the black here. A couple of pins, no lanyard, anything, that's fine. This is all great, right? The liners and the backspacer, or what I'm going to call the backspacer, right? The G10 looks fantastic. Everything. I mean, honestly, the fit and finish looks great. And you can see here it is just about, you can probably mash it a little bit, but it's almost, it is. It's exactly perfectly centered, right? It's a nice little slip joint knife. I would very much love to know who the OEM is, which is not information that I can get. I would like to know, right? I think that that's always important to find out who's making these. It is clearly somebody who cares, right? I have no doubt that this is legitimately 14C28N, but I would also like to know what these are coming in at in terms of hardness, because if they're hitting that industry standard, then honestly, for a slip joint style knife, this is pretty great. I would just like to see, since we are kind of dipping into, the whole modern take on a slip joint knife with some of these materials, it would be really cool to have an adjustable pivot and to have some adjustable body screws so that people could actually take these things apart and clean them. Because one of the things that kind of sucks about these style of knives too is that they get super duper gunked up. Like a pocket knife, like a modern style pocket knife, kind of has standoffs or just like a partial backspacer. It's really easy to clean them out, right? These, I'm not going to say it's difficult to clean them out, but it's a little harder. It's a little more tedious. So that would be nice to be able to do that, at least to be able to take the knife apart and really clean it if people want to. But yeah, I think this is great. It looks great from a design standpoint. It looks like the fit and finish is really good. I have no problem with the price tag. and it doesn't show any signs of being poorly heat treated, at least right out of the gate. I definitely have handled a few knives that even within the day, just doing some simple cardboard cuts, Sativian, have essentially become dull. And that's, for me, that's an obvious sign, like this isn't even heat treated, right? It's just nothing. So yeah, I would assume that it's probably at least okay, but I would really like to know. So hopefully Love Them Knives or somebody like that will be able to, give us the exact Rockwell hardness. But this was not information I was able to get, but the knife does seem really pretty good for $54. So that's pretty much it. I don't really have a whole lot more to say. I just thought that this was a little more impressive than the other, budget slip joint style knives that I've come across. And lots of companies want to send me stuff like this. I'm just generally uninterested, but I thought this was a little bit better. That's really all I have to say about this knife. There's not really a whole lot more here. I'll let you guys check this out if you want to, using the links in the description. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. And if you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like. So check those out. If you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.